Today. My name is Sandra. First of all, if you want to in the back, you can totally come. There's maybe another seat up here. If you want to get closer, you can. I am the Director of Advising, so most of you know me already. And before this, I worked at the University of Washington Tacoma campus for 3 years, doing international student advising, and the University of Chicago for 4 years, also doing international student advising. So I've advised a lot of undergraduate and graduate students, master's, PhD, and then I also worked in an immigration law firm for a few years. So I was helping people with work visas, asylum applications, family-based visas. So that's where I learned about immigration law and those kind of things. So that's where I am coming from. And now I have been at Green River since May. So I'm still getting to know everybody and know about this school, but it's fun to help all the students with applications for work authorization or to answer your visa questions. So we're going to talk about a couple things today, and then I want to get through your questions and then any other questions that you guys have that come up. I hope that also we will start to we'll keep building our website. So some of the things we're talking about today, maybe by the time January starts, you'll be like, oh yeah, it's already there on the website too, on our Green River website, so you can learn more about this. I think at the community college, it is not very common, from what I've seen, it's not very common to have lots of students doing OPT and things like that. Usually at the community college, there's not the resources or the time or the knowledge about that. But I want to make sure that you guys at Green River have all the opportunities that you can to work off campus, to know how to manage your visa status, and then when you get to university, you'll have other opportunities to do that. But I'm happy to help you kind of plan out what you're doing. Or for those of you who don't necessarily want to work and just have passport or travel questions, we can talk about those too. So a few things I want to start with, and one is, because you guys are here, that means you probably do things like read the newsletter, so that's awesome. Please tell your friends to check their Green River email for the newsletter. And if they ever miss it, we have it on our website under Advising Current Students. And so people can catch up with what's going on that week in international programs. So please be checking that, and like I said, tell all your friends that it's worth their while to check their email and to check our newsletter for the latest updates. We also do post things on the Green River Facebook page. So sometimes if there's something that we don't want to send out a whole, oh never mind, I have to log in. We don't want to send out a whole announcement to, the whole email list, we'll just post it on Facebook, something quick like, oh, remember this, or oh, we heard about this job, or check this out. So it's, if you haven't already friended your advisors on Facebook and liked the Green River page, you should totally do that. Great. So some of the things I wanted us to talk about today is a little bit about travel, a little bit about working on and off campus, some resources, and then we'll get to your individual questions. So on your handout here, the first page of that is, some of you got this at orientation if you're a new student, but this is a little, we call flow chart, so it shows you the process that most students go through during your studies at Green River. So you're already here. Right, you're here on campus, so you made it through the first part. And from now on, you need to be paying attention to what's going on going forward. So as you all know, you always have to be registered for 12 credits or more every quarter. There are a few exceptions. So if you are having a medical problem, whether it's a psychological problem or you're physically ill or whatever it is, if you get a doctor's letter that says they recommend that the doctor recommends that you're not full-time enrolled, we can authorize you. So if you're struggling with your health, be sure to talk to your advisor beforehand, before just being like, oh, okay, it's a disaster, I give up. Because we can authorize you to drop classes only in that kind of case. The other case is if it's your last quarter before you're going to graduate, we can authorize you for reduced course load for your final quarter if you only have 1 or 2 classes left before you get an associate's degree. That's okay. If you're transferring without an associate's degree, then you can't use that option. You have to be full-time up until it's time to transfer. But, and then of course the other option is it your vacation quarter? So after you've been a full-time student for at least 3 quarters, then you can take a vacation quarter where you can be registered a little bit here, you can be not registered at all, you can go even to a different school during your summer break. We have students that go to like the Stanford summer program, or you want to take a class at a different school. University of Washington Seattle is also open and more open enrollment for summer, so you can take classes elsewhere if it's your vacation quarter, and that's okay. You have to be sure to tell the Green River, your advisor, that you're taking a vacation quarter. Otherwise, we won't register you that quarter and we won't know where you are, and you could have your CVIS record terminated. So be sure to tell us if you're taking a vacation quarter. What else do we want to know? All right, travel signatures. Those are the signatures on page 3 of your I-20. You need it if you are leaving the U.S. and coming back in as an F1 student. So be sure to drop by the IP office during the times that we're signing for travel signatures if you're going to leave. Otherwise, when you come back in, if you didn't have that signed, you'll have trouble at the border. They'll probably let you in, but they'll make you wait a couple hours. They'll give you special paperwork to fill out, so it's a real pain. So be sure to get your travel signature in advance. And then what happens if you need to renew your visa in your home country? That's a question that we get a lot. So if your visa stamp in your passport expires and you stay in the U.S., it's totally fine. You are already here. As long as your I-20 is still in the future, you're still studying full-time, you're doing everything, the visa stamp in your passport can expire. But if you leave the U.S. and want to come back in as an F1 student, you need to renew your visa to come back in. So I like to say it's like the key to your apartment. You need a key to get in. When you're in your apartment, if you lose your key, it's no problem. But next time you leave, you better find your key to get back in your apartment. So that's how I like to think about it. If you're wondering how to renew your visa, you can only renew it outside of the U.S. So the visa stamp in your passport can only be renewed at a U.S. consulate abroad. Usually it's easiest to do in your home country. So if you happen to go back and visit your family, that's great. You can check out, this is the State Department, you can check out what the visa wait times are for a particular city. So you can see, okay, this is probably how long it's going to take to get my visa. So we can see in Ho Chi Minh City for a student visa, it's taking about 7 days to schedule your appointments for visa renewal, and it takes about 2 days for them to turn around and give you the visa. But let's try another one. Look, in Beijing, it only takes 1 day to get a visa appointment and 2 days to get it approved. Another one that students might do is they might go to Vancouver. So if you are from a country where it's easy to go to Canada, you don't need a visa. Some students who travel there may end up renewing their visa, their F1 visa in Canada to come back in. That is allowed to do it in another country that's not your own. That's called a third country application. What happens though, in case you get denied, and then you have to go back to your home country to try again to renew your visa. So it's a little bit riskier to renew your F1 visa in a country that's not your own, but it is possible. To be honest, I had only one student in many years who was denied in a third country. Actually, maybe 2. No, I think that one was fine. So one of them was, it wasn't in Canada though, she was from Ukraine. And she went to Colombia where she was visiting her friend, and she tried to renew it in Colombia. And in Colombia, they weren't very used to having Ukrainians there to renew their F1 visa. So they're like, oh, I don't know what to do with you. Please go back to Ukraine because we can't read your bank document. We don't know, we don't really know your situation. I also had one student who sometimes you can get delayed in that third country. Like one student got delayed in Mexico because it was so busy just from Mexican nationals applying at the U.S. consulate, so I don't really recommend going to Mexico to renew your visa. So he was stuck there for a while. I had another student who was stuck with a background check in London for a couple weeks, and she was late coming back to classes, and of course it's so expensive to stay in London. So that's the problem if you go to another country, if you have a delay or something, then if you don't have family there, you're stuck there waiting to come back. But on the other hand, I've had many students go to Canada and renew their visa. It is possible, but you might want to talk to your advisor beforehand. Otherwise, easiest thing to do is, number one, don't even leave the US. You don't have that problem. Or number two, go back to your home country and renew your visa. Does anybody have questions about a visa? Mm-hmm.
If I apply a visa in Vancouver, so is the process kind of the same?
It's similar, yeah, but every U.S. consulate kind of has their own process, but you'll still pay an application fee.
Yeah.
You'll still fill out the non-immigrant visa application form. But every country has a little different. Like, say you're going to the Philippines, they have a special drop box, like special way to mail in your renewal. Some countries don't even require their citizens to go in person for a renewal. They're like, this is easy, fine. We already approved you once, you don't have to come in person. Other countries, they're more strict and they make you come in person. So it's a similar process to when you first applied, but number one, it'll probably be easier because you're a renewal. You already got a visa once and you already behaved yourself, so they think, okay, this is not a very big risk. But secondly, you have to follow their weird instructions for each consulate. So if you look at their website, like the Vancouver consulate has online visa booking appointments, so you can look in advance to grab like what spot you want for the visa booking and things like that. And just keep in mind that certain times of year it gets really busy for students and other times like no one's going. So usually like in September or something like that, or August, it's more busy with student appointments, and you know, maybe in, I don't know, May or February, there's not many students trying to get their first visa, so it's a little less busy. Does that answer your question? More or less. Okay, that's a good one. Any other visa renewal questions? One other thing to know, we're going to talk about OPT and CPT a little bit, but OPT, which is the work authorization you can do during or after you graduate, that's part of F1. So you're still an F1 student, you still have your record with Green River, we're still your advisor, all during the time that you're on OPT. The same visa status, you still have an I-20, all of those things. It's just an extension of your study time. You're still an F1 student on OPT. So if you have a visa that's good for 5 years, and that includes your OPT time, great. Otherwise, if you do OPT after you graduate, you're working a little bit, you have to still have an F1 visa to come back in during OPT. So we can get more detailed about that sort of stuff, and we have an OPT workshop later. If you're going to apply or you're talking to me directly about it, we can get more into it, but that's one thing lots of students ask. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how to work. So here is one website that's quite official. This is the U.S. Homeland Security website that has some information. Sometimes they're trying to make it so general for every single student in the U.S. that sometimes it may or may not be perfectly applicable, but you know that generally speaking, they have the regulations on here. So, and some of these information can be a little different depending on your local area and what state requirements are in that. But the employment information is pretty accurate. So as an F1 student, you guys all know, because many of you I know work at Green River already, that you can work on campus as a student. So immediately, as soon as you come here, you check in, you're eligible to work on campus. You can work usually up to 20 hours a week while class is in session, or there's no limit during your breaks as long as you're a continuing student. So if you're on vacation quarter or something, you can work as much as you want. Now that's the U.S. regulations. The school regulations are often different. So Green River for student employment usually only has 16 hours a week as the maximum. So just know that 16 hours a week is usually what it is for a student job. And you won't have any problem with immigration because 20 hours is the limit, so that's actually a little bit less. You can even work in more than one on-campus job, but you have to make sure together that it doesn't exceed the total amount allowed. So we have students who are working, for example, they're advising assistants and also a peer mentor, which both are paid programs. So maybe they work 8 hours in one job, 8 hours in the other, and that works out okay. Also, some of you got the email that the new company that's running the cafeteria is hiring people, and that's also okay to work for them, even though it isn't, Green River is not the one who's paying you, but you are working on campus and serving students. So that's okay to work for an on-campus service provider, even if Green River is not that one paying you. So if you're confused about it, you're not sure if something counts as on campus or not, you can ask us. So like for example on the Kent campus, just because there is a business that's in the Kent campus building, the Kent station, that normally would not be on campus, even though our location is there, because those shops are serving many other people, not just students. But here on the Auburn, or this campus right here up on the hill, is pretty much all students. So any bookstore or the cafeteria or anything else like that is okay. So just ask your advisor if you're not sure beforehand. So when you start working, you get a job offer. That's when you can get a social security number. So a social security number is like the U.S. System of tracking all of your work. Social Security is actually a retirement system for old people to give them a pension. So that is how it started, but it turned into like kind of a national ID number. So it's okay that you don't have a Social Security number now. You will get it when you have a job. That will be, or you may never get it if you never have a job. That's okay too. It's annoying because it's hard to sign up for a cell phone or something like that. But you should be able to sign up for a cell phone, rent an apartment, do all those things without a Social Security number. Sometimes you just have to pay a deposit or do things like that. Once you get a Social Security number, you have that number for your whole life. So if you, first of all, take care of your card, because if you lose it, someone else could steal that number and start, taking out credit cards in your name. So be careful with that. Don't carry around your Social Security card everywhere. And then, but if you lose it and you're not sure what it is, you go to the Social Security office. They'll give you the same number, just a different card, but the same number. So that number is yours for your life. So once you have a Social Security number, now you can use it for applying for a credit card or applying for a cell phone, even if you're not working later. So sometimes students might say like, oh, I'm going to take this 1-week job somewhere just so I can get my Social Security number, and then, then just keep that card and don't lose it. What else? Okay, so that's on campus. Any other questions about on-campus employment?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Can the person or student have two Social Security numbers? For example, if I'm working here, and after when I graduate, if I apply to another work, will I have a different Social Security number?
That's a good question. No, you have that same one. So you only have to apply for a Social Security number one time, hopefully, if you don't lose your card. And then the next time you go to the next job, you keep using your same number. Because that's how the U.S. system keeps track of all the times you worked and how much money you have. So when you're filing taxes, or maybe you end up staying here for forever and you end up getting a pension, they can track all your earnings in your entire lifetime in the U.S. based on your number. So you shouldn't have two Social Security numbers. That would be very messy. So you'll just keep that one, and you'll use it at your next jobs. Oh, lots of questions. I love it. Okay. All right, so that's on-campus employment, and now off-campus employment, the more interesting and tricky part. So there's different types of off-campus employment. First I'll talk about the ones that we don't usually see very often. One of them is severe economic hardship. So if you were here for 1 year, because when you came you already had to show you had money to study for at least 1 year, but if you're here in year 2 or 3 and something terrible happens in your home country, like there's, when there was a tsunami in Japan, or when, maybe your uncle was your sponsor and unfortunately your uncle just lost all his business and now you have no money, you can apply for this severe economic hardship to work off campus in any kind of job, any job you can get to support yourself. Unfortunately, you do have to pay the application fee. So here you are in severe economic hardship, but you have to pay $380 to ask for the work card. So you can't be completely severe. You have to have, a little money, and you have to wait to get the card approved, and it takes 3 months. So if you have some money, but maybe not all the money you need, and you want to try to apply, you also have to give a lot of evidence, a lot of paperwork to show why this situation happened, because otherwise they could deny it. They say, oh, this one, you should have known about that, or I don't think that this case is very, very sad, and so they could deny it. So honestly, I have never done one of those applications in all my years, but we could do it. The reason I haven't is because I worked at schools where tuition was so high that any job you got was not going to really help you out. So, but here at Green River, it could, you could actually earn money to pay for your tuition, so that's a good thing. Then another type, there's if you intern for like the World Bank or the IMF or something like that, but usually that's graduate students doing that sort of stuff. So the more common ones that we will see are what's called CPT. It's curricular practical training. We don't do that very often, but it's possible. If you take an internship class, if you're taking a class here for credit that requires you to get some job experience at the same time, we can authorize you for CPT. And so we say, as your advisors, we say, oh, here's the job. Yes, this person's in the class. We let them work off campus for that quarter that they're taking the job. So like in the business major, there is an internship class. It could be possible to do CPT. I don't think again, it's not super common here at Green River or other community college levels, but it is possible. So if that is something that comes up for you, then we can help you with that one. And now for the most common one, which is OPT. So CPT is curricular, it relates to your curriculum, your school. OPT is optional practical training. It's one of the best things about F1 status. It allows you to get some practical training, some practical experience in your field. So you can, get a job experience related to what you are studying. You get 12 months of OPT per educational level. So actually you guys are in a really good situation because many of you are getting associate's degrees. You can get 12 months associate's degree level and 12 months bachelor's degree level. So a student who went straight to bachelor's degree only gets 12 months. You guys really could get 24 because you get 12 now and 12 later at bachelor's degree if you transfer. And then you can get another 12 at master's, another 12 at PhD. Keep going. That's it actually at that point. But yeah, so once you have been here for 1 year, that's 3 quarters of study, you are eligible for things like CPT and OPT. So the first year, all you can do is on campus. That's it for paid work. After 1 year, you can start to do OPT and CPT. So OPT, you can come and apply. Right now, everybody is applying with me, but soon all other advisors will know how to do this process. But if you're planning to do it, your advisor will give you some initial information about it, and then you can make an appointment with me. So what happens is that we fill out an application together. And you send your filing fee. It costs $380 every time you apply for this work card, and your pictures, and you end up with this work card that says, okay, this student can work for these particular dates. So usually students wait and use the whole 12 months after they graduate from their associate's degree. You apply in the beginning of your last quarter is the right time to apply for your OPT period. But you can also use it pre-completion. That means you can use it before graduation. So if you'll be here for 2 or 3 years and you want to transfer straight to university after that and not do a 12 months of OPT after graduation, you can use it before you graduate actually. You can use pre-completion OPT. So that's many numbers. But basically you can do it part-time while class is in session. So you could ask for part-time CPT to work off campus in your 2nd or 3rd year, and it's taken away at a half rate. So if you do, for example, 12 months of part-time OPT, that only takes away 6 months of your total to use after graduation. So someone could work part-time off campus for a year, and then also still have another 6 months to use after graduation. So that may or may not make sense to everybody. You can ask me questions later. But it is possible. So some people are like, I don't want OPT, I just want, my parents say I must go straight to school. But in that case, you can use OPT in your 2nd or 3rd year to get some off-campus work experience in the meantime, and then, hey, you'll get another 12 months at bachelor's, so you didn't waste anything. Yeah?
So OPT and CPT count as credits when we transfer?
That's a good question. So no, OPT does not. It's not based on your classes. CPT is based on your course enrollment. It depends on your school whether or not their internship class will be transfer credit. It may or may not be. It may be elective credit, or it's not really a core required class. So they may not count it for transfer credit. So some students might like to do, if you're doing your core transfer credit and then you just do a few credits of internship class, and maybe it doesn't cost you extra if you're already paying for full time. So you have to kind of make that determination about whether or not you want to do CPT, because you do have to pay for the credits, and it may or may not transfer to your school, because they may or may not be like, oh yeah, that's academic, that's not academic. But it depends. Some, like business majors, do count internship credit towards their degree requirements. Other schools may not, so it just depends on your school. But OPT does not count for credit. It's just basically what, US students just get to go out there and do an internship without having to do all this stuff. But that's really great for them because they can put it on their resume, they can put it on their application to show that their job experience that they're getting. So this is a way for you guys to be able to have that sort of practical experience too, which will help you when you eventually graduate. You actually have all this job experience, hopefully.
Like we do OPT while we are doing
So if you do it depends. So you can do an internship while you're still in school, or you can do it after graduation. An internship really is just a title that makes your job sound a little more fancy, and like you're learning a little bit more. It's not just like, okay, I'm working at Starbucks making coffee. Like, no, I am doing an accounting internship, and I am, you're getting, it sounds better. An internship sounds better. In the end, it's all just jobs when it comes to immigration. So this is an interesting point that actually, if you do an unpaid internship, no one else is getting paid for it. It was advertised as unpaid. It's just for you to get job experience. You don't need to get authorization for that. So, because they really are controlling the money. They're not, if you just want to go and volunteer or do an unpaid internship, that's fine. You don't have to do OPT and CPT. But if you're going to get paid, you definitely need to get authorized beforehand. And the other thing is, though, you shouldn't work for Starbucks for free, because the person next to you is getting paid, and now you're like, oh, I just want the job experience, I'm volunteering. That's against labor law. Actually, Starbucks wouldn't let you do it because they are basically exploiting you. They are using your free labor. And so like I would have students that wanted to go volunteer in a lab or volunteer at an investment bank. And sorry, no one volunteers for that. You always get paid. So stop doing that. It depends, though. Sometimes you volunteer. You're on a research project at this level, associate's degree level. It could be. So if you're not sure if this is a paid or unpaid, and you'd always ask first before you start doing it. But generally, if no one else is getting paid for the same thing, it's okay. If everyone else is getting paid for it and you say, oh, I will do it for free, that's not okay. Yeah?
My question is like, OPT is about like your major and course
Mm-hmm.
related, but if I want to have a job that is not my course related, just to like earn money and stuff when I transfer, is it possible, or I have to like look for something for my major showing that it's like I took this job to get like.
This is an extremely good question. Yes, OPT is supposed to relate to your major. How you relate it to your major may depend for you. Honestly, at the associate's degree level, we actually have like 3 main degrees that most of us are doing, which is Associate of Science, Associate of Business, and Associate of Arts. So even though we put on your I-20 these very specialized major, I'm majoring in metallurgical engineering or something like that, that's not actually a major here. That is your area of study. So if you're actually just getting an Associate of Science and you have something that you can back up, like how you're learning something that's related to your program of study, then that's okay. I think business students probably have it the easiest because just about everything relates to business in some way or another. It's a little bit harder for the science or engineering or that sort of track to say how that relates to your job experience. So my advice would be to do both, to get a job that is you're earning some money, but you're also learning a little bit that you can justify how it's related to your program of study. So if, and we are not necessarily the ones with OPT that have to say, oh yeah, that is, that isn't. We can give you some advice, but in the end it's going to be you and your life and your immigration record. If later on down the line you're trying to apply for a work visa or something, they will look back and say, hey, why were you working at McDonald's when you were an electrical engineer? And so you have to have some good justification. Well, I was actually working on their, on their machines or something. So you just have to kind of keep your own documentation and records and have a good argument for how that relates to your program of study. That's a great question. Thank you.
I have 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
You said if you want to qualify for CPT or OPT, we have to be here for 1 year.
Correct.
Does that mean we have to be here for 3 consecutive quarters, or can we 1 quarter and then be interrupted for 1 quarter?
Okay, so the question was, do you have to be here for 3 consecutive quarters? Generally speaking, yes, because if you weren't here, well, it depends. I mean, if you were here for 2 years and you had a vacation quarter in the middle of it right before you were applying for OPT, then that's okay. But if you took a break and went home and did a return home, that kind of shuts off the clock. The clock stops and it restarts again when you come back. So you have to be back as an F1 student in status for at least 3 quarters. But if you're a continuing student and vacation quarter was authorized, then it's okay for it not to be 3 right in a row. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one more question. Does graduation mean, if I want to transfer to university without getting an associate degree, does that qualify as graduation from GRCC or not?
If you transfer without getting an associate's degree, that does not count as graduation. Yeah, for the purposes of, what's going on with OPT. CPT, it wouldn't be a big deal, but OPT, it would be a little bit bigger deal. how that would translate if you weren't actually planning to get an associate's degree. So that's a good question. Using OPT when you don't get an associate's degree might be problematic because, you know, I think it would work out, in pre-completion would be the question for us. Post-completion, definitely not. Post-completion OPT, the one you use after you graduate, you actually definitely have to have an associate's degree. So take those PE classes if that's your plan.
Will we help you with applying to jobs outside campus, or will you put that on?
That's a great question. Do we help you with applying to jobs outside of campus? At this point, we don't have we don't have a job office counselor for off-campus. You can talk to your advisor if there's some ideas, but generally speaking, you're on your own. We will have some workshops in winter. One is about career planning, and then Adam, there's Adam back there, yeah. He's going to lead a session on resumes and cover letters and using your international experience to sound cooler on your resume. So that's a key point. But, also for you guys to realize it's a really good practice to just get out there and start looking for jobs. So you can apply for jobs in advance when you're in the process of applying for OPT. You don't have to have your job yet because it takes 3 months to get your card. So it's a good time to start your job search, and you just can't start working until you get approved and get your card. But yeah, so I would say at this level you're looking at Craigslist. Look at the companies that you want to work at and start getting an idea of what's open. There's lots of just resources out there. The number one thing is networking. That is the best way to get your job. So if your parents have any friends, if you have any friends, if you know anybody, that is the best way to get your job. So it's important to start thinking about what you want to do and just start telling that to everyone you know, because you never know when they'll be like, oh, my uncle does that. Let me have you talk to my uncle about working there. So I think that would be my advice, yes, is just to get out there. Because you guys all have also very different things that you want to do. Once you get to the bachelor's degree level and beyond, then usually your campuses may or may not have fancy job offices that will help you, on-campus recruiting or something like that. But at this level, not so much. Okay, I know some people have to go to class. I'm going to start looking through here. Make sure job off campus, I think we did it. Social security number. Oh, how to apply for a 5-year visa. That's a good question. If you are from China, you probably heard you're going to get a 5-year visa next time, so congratulations. Students from India also get 5 years. It really depends on what country. That's what it comes down to, is how the U.S. is feeling about your country at the time. And they'll give everyone a 5-year visa, usually, even if they're only studying for 1 year. And then the next person may be studying for 10 years and they got a 6-month visa. Just depends on what country you're from. How to get a work visa after graduating is a really good question. I'm happy to talk to people about that. But so first of all, the best way to ever stay in the U.S. is to marry a U.S. citizen. Yeah, so for love, it has to be for real. They will check it. You'll have different interviews, like what color is your husband's toothbrush, and you have to show that you're living together, your bank accounts together, vacation pictures, all that stuff. So for real. But that's also, that's the best way, or the easiest way, depends based on your circumstances. The other way is there's a work visa called the H-1B visa, but it's only available for those with bachelor's degree or higher levels. It's probably easiest to get in certain fields like computer science is my favorite one for H-1B visas, and often at the graduate level. So I would say that right now with the way the immigration system is, that I would just plan that use your OPT as much as you can, and then plan to keep going back to school, and then maybe once you get really specialized, then an employer will go through the trouble of doing a work visa. OPT is very easy for an employer. They don't have to do anything. You just show up, you're already authorized. The only problem is you can only work for them for like a year. So by getting a work visa afterwards, you have to kind of build up your relationship with that employer, and it has to meet certain circumstances. It has to be a specialized job that requires at least a bachelor's degree. You have to have that specialized education, and then you can get a work visa. And then beyond that, you can try to get a permanent residence, a green card, but that's even more trouble for the employer. So a little easier when you go through family. But okay.
While she's looking at the questions, one thing I might add is that whether when you're at Green River or at the university level, have good relationships with your professors. A lot of times your professors know people working in your industry, whether it's accounting or aviation or biology research. They might be able to connect you with potential internship, whether it's paid or unpaid, or maybe even a full-time job later after graduation. So that's why it's always very good to volunteer in class, visit your professors during office hours, and network with them.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you, Bjorn. One question was, if I'm on vacation quarter, can I still work in the school? According to the visa regulations, you can, but it may not be. I don't think it's the school regulations. I do believe the school regulations require you to be taking some classes to work in school during your vacation quarter. But, like for example, if you're working for the cafeteria people, they probably wouldn't care if you're in school or not. And so visa regulations say yes, you can work on vacation quarter, but school regulations may be different for student category employment. Okay, this is a question. Passport's going to expire. Do they need to renew their I-20? No, our I-20 actually has no information about your passport on it, so they're kind of independent. You need to always make sure your I-20 is current, so if it expires, you need to renew it. If you're still needing more time to graduate, you need to extend it. But your passport going is not the same thing as your I-20, so it's totally okay if you renew your passport. And usually what happens is if you still have a valid visa, you'll have two passports. You'll have one, your old passport that still has the good visa in it, and then you have your new passport too that's not expired. So be sure to renew your visa though, or your passport. You should always make sure your passport is valid into the future. So if it's going to expire within the next 6 months, go to your consulate and renew your passport. That's a requirement. Okay, I like that one. I think we answered some of that. Oh, how long can I work for? I think we kind of answered that. It's a little different with CPT. The good thing about CPT is that CPT doesn't necessarily take away from OPT, so it actually could give you extra time. So you can do CPT and OPT as well. CPT is, again, the one where you're taking class. The only restriction is you can't do more than 12 months full-time CPT, or you never get OPT again. But as long as you're just doing part-time CPT, whenever you're doing your internship class, or you just do little periods of it over the course of your associates, bachelor's, and master's, you will be fine. So CPT is a nice one because then you save your OPT time. And another question, can you do your own business during CPT? That would be a little tricky because CPT specifically requires you to name the company and the address, and you have to have a job offer letter. But OPT does allow you to have your own business. So you can be self-employed during OPT. You can be a contract employer, so you can just be on not an official employee there, but they just pay you when you come in. So that's okay for OPT. But CPT is more like you should probably have an employer you're working for. So have your friends start the business and then bring you a letter. No, I'm only kind of kidding. All right. I think I got through those ones. Was there any other in the last couple minutes you guys want to ask?
Like if I do my MSc and master's,
Uh-huh.
I work here and I'm applying for a job.
Yep.
So will I have an H1 visa or F1 visa?
So usually what happens, students use their F1 visa when they're first applying, because you can use your OPT when you're first applying to the job, and then the employer does your H1B visa for the following year, going on that. I should also mention, you guys, that there's something called a STEM extension. So if you're doing a science, technology, engineering, and math major, bachelor's level or later, you can actually get extra 17 months. So if you graduate from in a science, technology, engineering, and math, not associate's degree, but later on, you can actually work for 29 months after your degree. So that's a lot of time to work at different employers and then get them to love you so much they do your H1B visa. But it depends on the situation. But generally speaking, students usually use their F1 first because you only get 6 years of H1B, so you may as well max out your OPT and then start using H1B time. Okay. 6 years. Did I say months? Sorry. 6 years of H1B.
Oh.
Pardon me. And it can keep going on if you're still in process waiting for your green card, but you'll get there. Yeah?
Sorry, just not clear. Is the OPT 12 consecutive months, or can it just be in installments,
Interesting question. OPT can be in installments if you haven't graduated yet.
Oh.
After you graduate, it has to be 12 months. Well, actually, you could do part of it, but I don't know why you would save it. Unless you're planning to do another associate's degree, you may as well use it all up after you graduate. So, okay. Thank you, guys. If you have any more questions, come up and ask me. But thanks to you guys for coming. And we'll have more workshops about OPT specifics, but again, you can always ask me.